You know, they made a lot of objections. I will say they made a lot of objections during the first trial, but the judge agreed to let in this expert, this witness. So it almost seems, Michael Jaafar, that they shouldn't be going after him again in a different way. Is that justice in this case, or is it something that the jury should be deciding between? Because they say he's not an expert, he's an advocate. What's the difference?
I mean, obviously, an advocate would be different than an expert, but I can't believe what I'm about to do here, Julia. I can't. It's almost like I don't recognize myself. I'm going to agree with Karen Read's defense attorneys. I hate this woman.
First time
I hope she gets convicted. Yeah. I absolutely detest this woman. I think she's a liar. I'm hoping she gets convicted, but I'm going to agree with her defense attorneys. It's almost like it's been central to my identity to detest this woman and to disagree with her attorneys. They're completely correct. I think Hank Brennan, listen, Hank Brennan, if you don't like it, he said, I think earlier in the hearing today, he said, well, Mr. Green wants to just make salacious comments and then wait for and expect us to break it down. Well, of course, Hank Brennan, that's the whole point of a trial. That's the whole point of having a battle of the experts. That's your job. The job of the defense is not to make your job easy, it's to make your job hard. So I do agree that he should be allowed to testify. Is he I mean, his testimony is helping the defense. So in one regard, he is kind of an advocate, but pretty much every expert put on by every single litigant kind of doubles as an expert and an advocate for that side. It's sad, but that's just the way it is. But I think he should be allowed to testify. And I don't think this should matter anyway, Julia. I think there's a mountain of evidence against her. I think at the end of the day, it's like whether even if they have their way and he doesn't testify, it still doesn't really say anything that that McCabe searched at 6 in the morning versus 2 in the morning. So that's a whole separate side angle.
It's a big issue. What we learned today is that Judge Cannoni is going to take it under advisement. She's not going to need another hearing. She has all of the information, and she'll put out a written order on what's going to happen with Green. April 1st, still that trial date. That is a good point to bring out, and it seemed that even his grandfather is not really in a supportive way about him. He seemed even on cross-examination to be combative with the defense attorney who's representing his grandson. Michael Jaafar, Paulette mentioned the abuse and the bits and pieces that the jury is getting, but should he take the stand to talk more about that, to talk about having seen his mother shoot her partner? We're assuming that was his father, or not shoot, but stab. He witnessed violence at a very young age, 10 years old, and now 7 years later, he's killed both of his parents. Could he talk about that if he took the stand?
He's going to have to testify, and here's why. Because here's what the jury's going to see. The jury already knows about the injuries. By the end of the trial, they'll know about the injuries. They'll know that the knife went through the neck. They'll obviously have seen the testimony of the grandfather, where he compellingly said, basically, he premeditatedly wanted to fantasize about killing his mother. They'll know that he was Baker acted. I'm pretty sure that this will come into the case. He would have to testify in order for him to be humanized somewhat, right? This is already an overwhelmingly difficult defense anyway, right? It's the only defense you can have. The only shot that he has, not even at an acquittal. I don't even think an acquittal is even in the realm of reality. I think the only chance he has at maybe reducing it to maybe some sort of a manslaughter, right? The only shot he has is to somewhat humanize himself in front of the jury, right? He was a kid when this stuff happened. He had a tumultuous relationship. This does not excuse in the mind of the jury, I don't think, what he did, right, if they reach that conclusion. But they're definitely going to reach the conclusion that there was some intent behind his actions, and this was not self-defense. You'd have to humanize him. I like what Paulette said. I didn't even think about it, where he doesn't even have an anchor to talk sense into him. I didn't think about it, right? I was a public defender. I defended my fair share of people that you cannot talk reason into them, right? It was easy when you're defending somebody with a misdemeanor. It's difficult when you're defending somebody on national television for murder. So he's going to have to testify, Julia. I'm sure his attorneys are going to tell him to do it and just kind of throw caution to the wind and hope for the best.
So here's a reason that it may be difficult for him, especially when his attorneys are worried about what he may say. And Bernardo, I want to ask you about this. We're going to play this clip from today. It was a big moment when the detective, Danny Peters, took the stand and read these text messages between Colin and his mother, and where his mother is threatening to expose him for how he killed his father. At this point, he's off on self-defense. The charges are dropped, but she says she has proof now. And remember, the unique thing about this case is because of emotion, the jury knows that he killed someone previously, but they don't know who that person is. Like an assassination attempt, he got grazed on the knuckles. He's making the comparison. But yes, no, I don't know has seemed to be his favorite answer during his testimony. As I've been watching, the judges reminded him, you have to pick one. You can't throw all three of them out there. The tank is with us. Bernardo Villalona, Paulette Lofton, and Michael Jaafar. Michael, let me start with you. ASAP Rocky on the stand, at times visibly frustrated. It's the fourth day. What do you think the jury is taking away?
I think they're taking away that he's very agitated. I hope that the jury understands just how big of a deal it is to this young man to be testifying in a courtroom. He comes from a background, a world where he is never going to live the life he dreamed of living, you know, for obvious reasons. He's been disowned by all his friends, people he grew up with. So I think the jury might see that. They might see that that's what he's going through. But at the end of the day, they're going to see that he was agitated. But here's the thing I'll say. Jurors hate lawyers. We are the most reviled profession in the world. So I think the jury could look at the lawyer examining him and look down on him because he's obviously being a snarky, cross-examining attorney, right? I think they might see that. I've talked to jurors before and they say, I don't like when attorneys are aggressive. I hate it. I grew up watching movies of attorneys being aggressive and they get people off for murder, right? That's just what people say. So our profession, we are very hated people. Maybe they might see that. I always say, if I ever get indicted for stealing a rock from Mars, I'll just take a plea because I have no defense at that point. I'm an attorney. So I think they might see that, but who knows? But I think that they're gonna somewhat, you know, side with him a little bit, but who knows? We'll see. But I think that they would definitely, you know, cast shade against the attorney.
Now, they've certainly been tough on him, and they've brought up things that don't necessarily have to do with the case, and really has made it clear that seems irrelevant to me, but it has to do with whether or not he's been lying about his success and what he's done in his life, almost embarrassing him in front of the public. But Bernardo, the defense has highlighted this delay, and that's something that came out today, that Relly flew from Hollywood after this injury to New York, and then it's 2 days later that he sought attention from medical personnel and also took this case to the police. Is that going to be a huge issue here?